so sure of himself that the church where the founder of Stockholm is buried will be more than happy to give some of his relics to a town hall. And of course, they said no. He's a holy person. And his name was Birger Jarl. He was the vizier to the king. Back in the 13th century, kings were elected, so the king was his son. And what he did, this Birger Jarl, he puts a lock to the lake. He puts logs in the water, or in Swedish, stockar. So vessels has to maneuver in a certain path to enter the lake and vice versa. And he started to charge customs based on what goods they had on board. And that's how the city started to develop. And the first time the name Stockholm was mentioned anywhere was on a document, and the year was 1252, 1252. So we say Stockholm was founded that year. On the right side, you can see the smallest island of them all, the white building with the green trees around it. That's the Stream Island. It's so small that one building takes up the whole island. And where the bridge is on the right side, it ends in the old town. And some of you maybe will return to the old town because they have an amazing pedestrian street, and you can shop till you drop over there. Okay, I'll take my seat so no policeman or policewoman will stop me, and I will get a ticket, not Christoph. If I sit without a safety belt, it's only my fault. So you can see again that smallest island on the left side with the trees, and behind it again you can see the see-through spire, which is the island of nobility. So we already mentioned, since we began the tour, about 5 different islands, but now, dear guests, we're back on the mainland, and we'll drive a bit on the mainland and see the commercial and business center. And we just turned right into a street called Vasagatan, Vasa Street, and that's a name that we have to use quite often when you're in Stockholm, because that's the king 500 years ago that introduced the Reformation. From being Catholics, we are now Lutheran Protestants. And he came into Stockholm in 1523. That's why the City Hall had to be inaugurated on the 23rd of June 1923, since it was exactly the 400th anniversary to this king entering the city. The white building on the left side, that's our central station, and look how wide it is. You haven't seen much graffiti in the city. Maybe in the old town you'll see a bit more because it's hard to catch those artists. But we have zero tolerance for tagging, and within 48 hours it will be gone. And now I want you to see how the change in architecture affected us. If you look now to the right, you'll see the Royal Post Office. Look at this building here. Look at all the details, all the inspiration from nature, round shapes, bricks. And then I want you to notice the building on the left side, which we call functionalistic style. And that's the style that arrived after the previous building I showed you. At the beginning of the 1900s, there was a lot of Art Nouveau in town, or Jugend style. And then came the 30s and changed everything. And everything was functionalistic, very basic, no soul. Everything had to be efficient. They used mostly 4 different elements, which is glass, wood, stone, and rock. And you'll see an area that we're going to drive through soon that is so functionalistic, and the old generation might miss the style that you can actually see now on the left side, which is also from the early 20th century or 1900s. Other things I want you to notice as we drive around today. We drive on the right side of the road, but it wasn't always this way. Until 67, we drove on the left side. Yeah, until the 3rd of September 1967, we drove on the left and we switched from left to right. We called that day H Day, the letter H from the Swedish word we borrowed from German, höger. Höger means right. And half a year we were groomed into learning how it's going to be like after the switch. And it worked without problems. The two main reasons why we made that switch, the first reason was that all the cars had the steering wheel on the left side, like where Christopher's sitting right now. And the drivers were on the edges of the road. The second reason, all our neighbors drove on the right-hand side. And Norway was part of Sweden for such a long time, and we have a very long border with Norway until 1905, so it was problematic when you cross the borders between the countries. So we switched, and now we drive on the right. At this very moment, we're on a street called the King's Street, which used to be the main shopping district in Stockholm. And we're going to be crossed right now by the Queen Street. I'll ask Christoph to slow down a bit so you'll see on the right side those flowers hanging from above. This is a very long street. It cuts through the city and it goes all the way down to the old town, and that's where the old town's pedestrian street will begin. That is more zigzag. For a man it takes about 20 minutes, for a woman a day or two. If you have black belt in shopping, that's where you want to be, okay? And now, dear guest, on the right-hand side, we have a lovely square called the Haymarket. And there's a blue building on the right. Dear guests, that blue building that you see now on the right side, that's the concert hall. That's where the Nobel Prizes are actually given, at least 5 of the 6. Because you know the Peace Prize is given on the same date in Oslo, the capital of Norway. Alfred Nobel, when he wrote his will at the end of the 19th century, Norway was still in a union with Sweden. And it only made sense to